What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Bonfire, the first Bonfire that we are recording in season of MLS 2025. So super exciting news. I am your host, Mr. Matt Shableman, aka M Shaves, aka that super cool guy. I don't know, not being creative tonight. And I'm joined by a full team. We got the original four back in the office, and the original four include myself, Matt. I'm joined alongside Mr. DJ. DJ, how are you?
I have Thin Mints. I just realized I'm good.
Dude, I'm so jealous. Are they frozen or are they just like regular Thin Mints?
Regular. I need to get a Shamrock Shake as well.
You need to throw those in the freezer. I'm telling you, gas. Try it and then let us know in the next recording session. Tim, you like those?
Yeah, that is a good, wise decision. Smart choice by Shableman.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Also, Tim's here in case you couldn't tell. How are you, Tim?
Good.
Yeah?
Glad that we're finally in season. It feels like there was like a lot of time and yet like not a lot of time in the preseason. Like we were busy doing stuff on the Minute Red, some of which you can see, some of which you can't. But now we're here and it's just like games, man. Games that matter. It's awesome.
Yeah, games that matter. It felt like a very long off season. Granted, it's the same length every single time, but this one in particular. And alongside Tim and DJ, we have, of course, the Polish trumpet, the Polish
saxophonist,
trumpeter, but he plays the saxophone. So
he plays the saxophone. The Polish saxophone master, Mr. Allen. Hey man, how are you?
Yes, after that intro, I'm feeling absolutely incredible.
I'm sure that the music teacher here actually was very glad that you didn't even get the right section right. One's a woodwind, one's brass.
One's brass, one's woodwind. I mean, hey, saxophone's still made out of metal, so it confuses a lot of people still.
You blow in it, music comes out.
Yeah. Would it be surprising? Would it be surprising to any of you to when I say that I don't really know instruments? It's not really my thing outside of guitar, trumpet, saxophone, bassophone, not a thing. All kind of sound the same to me. So Alan's probably like shivering inside right now after what I just said there. But it's great to see you, Alan.
I believe Alan is currently planning a nuclear strike on your house. You might want to take duck and cover.
Well, all I'll say is if he does a nuclear strike on my house...
Let Matt play saxobass for us first, though.
Yeah. Maybe one day I'll get to play the trumpet, saxophone, bassophone at a fire game like Alan. But it's great to see you, and it's great to have the whole crew. Although that's kind of a trigger word in today's session. The whole gang, back together. Alan, tell us a little bit about your trip. You just got back from Columbus not even 10 minutes ago. Give us the rundown. How was it?
Well, the drive to was an experience because me and my girlfriend Natalie, who joined me on this road trip, we drove together. Me driving in our car, it took us like 6+ something hours. We got in Columbus at 1 a.m. I also got pulled over by the Ohio State Police, so that was fun. Apparently I was good. I know, exactly. So just another reason not to like Ohio. The ride back was better though. One thing that absolutely was not fun was the absolute traffic jam that was after the game, because not only were the crew playing against the Fire, but the Blue Jackets were playing against the Blackhawks. So it was truly Chicago versus Columbus, like same street. So it took, I think, like 25-30 minutes just to get out of the parking onto the street.
Man, I have had much worse experiences at Soldier Field, so...
Well, yeah. Well, that's just the experience I had in Columbus. So, other than that, it was great. Well, I mean, the game happened. It happened. What happened, and apart from that, the rest of our visit was great.
Good.
So, speaking of that, Matt, do you want to just tell the listeners, just remind them, because we want to give everyone some pain on this episode, what happened in Columbus with the Fire?
100%. So, if you missed Saturday's match, season opener. Fire at Columbus, kind of a classic MLS showdown. Triple G's return to Columbus. We lost, and we lost in really interesting fashion, and we'll get into that, what exactly that means. But to give you the rundown of the events, the final score is 4-2. A lot of goals, which is really exciting, but some of the goals were really scary. Brian Gutierrez.
Most goals ever, by the way, in a Fire crew match. I mean, they've played...
Oh, interesting.
That's the 77th meeting in MLS regular season. There have been some meetings in other competitions, so it was over 80. No one. There've never been 6 goals before. So,
DJ, I thought that'd be a you stat. Tim kind of stole your thunder right there. You got to step up your game. That's all I'm saying.
The autism was not strong. Listen, the autism was not good yesterday. I almost started writing about Dwayne De Rosario's form, okay?
That's actually, it's not even my stat, by the way. I'm not even going to try to take credit. That comes from someone that works for the team. So they did a good job putting that together. You know who you are, and I thank you. I read what you put out there. So just saying, if you are a listener,
thank you, mysterious person from the club. It was a really interesting first half for the Fire. Brian Gutierrez, star number 10. He scored twice, pretty quickly, one after the other. One was in the 13th minute and the 22nd minute. And interestingly enough, they were both assisted by new star winger Jonathan Bamba, who had an incredible debut, and I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit. The Fire went up 1-0. The Crew then leveled it in the 20th minute. Gutierrez scored again in the 22nd, and then the Crew promptly followed it up by tying it again in the 38th minute before taking the lead like 10 seconds before the final whistle of the first half, which feels like a very classic Fire thing to happen. There was an additional goal in the 50th minute to make it 4-2, and then we got super scared when Mr. Russell Rowe, the Crew's new starting 9, scored another goal in the, that was AZ. AZ scored the fifth goal, in the 62nd minute, but it was VAR'd away from offsides. A lot of the goals, which I'm sure we'll talk about when we talk about what went wrong in this game, came from the midfield. There were a couple of Sergio Orejel turnovers. Zinkernagel, the vet, had a turnover in the middle of the box that resulted in a goal. And there was also a Carlos Turan own goal, which is never something you wanted to say. And I feel like that's not his first own goal in a Chicago Fire shirt. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I believe he scored an own goal in 23, I want to say.
Got it. Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, that was, it was just a wild own goal. We'll talk about that, I guess, in a minute, but
for sure. Absolutely wild own goal. If you were watching on TV, Alan's probably the only one that actually saw it, because at least in Apple TV, there was a graphic or like a commercial over it at the time the goal happened. So I didn't even actually see the goal until the commercial came around.
Just to quickly go over that own goal, it was Turan. He tried to clear it, and unfortunately the clearance went into the back of the net. I think he was just caught off guard with it.
So Jack Elliott got a toe on it at the right side of the box. It kind of was arcing up. Carlos Turan was going to try to clear it. He didn't really get everything on it. Part of the reason why is that Jonathan Dean recognized that there was an unmarked runner in the box. He started trying to get advantage on him. And I didn't get a great look at the contact as many ways as I could, but it looked like there was some contact. I don't think it was anything intentional. I'm not even sure that it would have been a foul, but he fell to the ground and basically landed right where Carlos Turan was. And I think that was a factor too, because he couldn't really get the positioning that he wanted. So it was a double deflection. So of course there was a double doink involved in Chicago, and just a crazy, I don't even know what lessons there are to be learned from that. Like the positioning on it from both Elliott and Turan wasn't great. I think Turan was out of position. I think that Dean was cooked and was trying to use his speed to get back into the play. Just like errors all around, but it came out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Own goals, double doinks. This game felt like a classic Chicago curse, if we're honest. But yeah, 6 goals in the game, 4 for the Fires. AZ, 62nd minute. Russell Rowe had the first goal, and then the Diego Rossi 2 goals in the middle of it. Got the Crew to where they are now. So a goal fest in Columbus is the only way to put it, and not in the Fire's favor. In addition to the goals, there were a lot of fouls. The Fire committed 17 fouls compared to Columbus's 8. Got 3 yellows in the process, which, if I remember correctly, Zinkernagel got 1, Guti got 1, and he was lucky not to get a red in the first place. That was not a great elbow from star number 10 after a great first half. Kind of struggled a little bit in the second half. But who was the third? I can't remember.
Sergio Orejel. And that was unfortunate. Columbus has been winning games. They've got more points than any other team in the league over the past 2 seasons by dominating in the midfield. So giving him his first start over 2 years after his last and only MLS appearance, and throwing and it being against the Columbus Crew while the Fire are trying to play out of a new system with a new coach, is really just throwing the young Fire homegrown into the Lions Den. And
Yeah.
he didn't look great. He did some good stuff. He did some stuff that wasn't as good, but earned a yellow for his trouble and was sort of involved in the creation of one of the Columbus goals.
Yeah, it's like when you throw out a rookie pitcher against the Los Angeles Dodgers lineup. It's gonna baseball analogy. Look at me, super cool. But a tough spot to debut. And on one hand, you think to yourself, okay, Triple G obviously really trusts Sergio to go in there and compete. And on the other hand, obviously that didn't show out in practicality. And that's one of the many things that went wrong in the game, which we'll touch on in a bit. But it was a tough yellow from him, a tough turnover from him. And we got to remember at the end of the day, the kid's also 19, making his first time MLS debut. So,
first time start, he debuted in 2022, which is crazy.
Yeah, for sure. There were a lot of players that were unavailable for the Fire, some key players as well that probably were some of the reasons that the result was like it is. And that includes Marin Haile-Selassie, who's been absent pretty much all of preseason. Tentative starting reg back, Barroso, our new signing from Sporting CP's B team. Chase Gasper, who similarly to Marin hasn't been around all preseason. Dylan Borso, same, hasn't been around. Probably is a couple years away. And then, of course, the new Cadiz CF signing, Roming Kwame. And of course, David Pareba, who tore his ACL during preseason, which is really bad. Chris Mueller was also out. That was a non-injury reason. And I think it's reasonable to start the speculation that he's probably on the trading block.
It's personal. Yeah, it's a family-related issue.
Oh, interesting. That's actually great.
Just to clarify that, just to clarify, because there have been some rumors around and I think some misinformation about it, but that's the best information that I have. So I think it's unclear what Chris Mueller's position is in the future of the Fire, but his absence from the squad on Saturday, especially when there were 7 players missing to injury, is not about the fact that he couldn't have been useful in depth chart for this game when he's available for the match.
For sure. I know, Tim, yesterday in a group chat, you were actually floating the idea of throwing Chris Mueller and at fullback. And I thought that was a really intriguing idea. So there's definitely ways that you could still involve him, although, throwing him at left wing might not be the way that you set him up for success in this offense.
Not if Bamba's playing like that. That's the thing.
Point.
It's can we get 2 more Bambas and just play them each for 270 minutes a game?
I wish. On the topic of Bamba, I really like positivity, and you could see the giant smile on my face. I want to talk about things that went right, because positivity is good. We need some. And I'm going to kick it over to Alan first, because he seems really eager. What went right? What were some of the positives out of this game?
The explosivity, just how the Fire would explode into play, and especially Bamba just running down and creating those chances, especially the 2 that eventually became goals to Gutierrez. Just that sort of explosive play that Bamba he just had. I don't know. I don't know if this is just what I felt like because of just the adrenaline of being there. First of all, it was the atmosphere there was incredible because, the Fire's, the crew is doing their Wiseman Say song that they always do, and we're just yelling Fire all over that. And from what I heard, we were very audible. So that was good. But it felt the Fire lost that explosivity essentially once, because of those mistakes. That's why I say they shot themselves in the foot.
Well, it was part of that. The other thing is I think that the crew made some tactical adjustments early on.
Yeah.
And when you've been, and I talked to Berhalter about this before the game, basically, and he pointed out the challenge that the crew have been playing under basically the same system now for 2 seasons. And when you think about it, the first practice session with Greg Berhalter at the helm was a month and a half ago, a little bit less than that. So they've had more time to work out tactical wrinkles and stuff like that and adjustments and plan Bs. And I think that's what we saw early on, Bamba was just being given the entire left side of the pitch, it seemed like all to himself. And the crew will expose themselves in the back line because they're going to push higher. And that's how teams have managed to have success against them. But on both goals, he was just basically given his own private zip code on the pitch there. And after some adjustments, and they started like sliding guys right, and eventually putting 2 guys on him. I think that changed the game, and really limited the Fire's chances. They still had some, and I think Bamba still looked good. Like he was playing through opposition, and he was playing smart the entire game.
He was being triple teamed at one point, I swear, over there on the left.
And part of that was what he was doing because he was able to, he was able to use his confidence on the ball and his ability to know they could play through pressure to drag defenders his way, which is what led to the Guti's second goal because he basically created space for Guti by holding on to the ball a little bit longer, didn't release it as quickly as he could, and knew that he could thread the pass from 3 oncoming defenders to Guti just like inside the penalty arc, and it made it an easy shot for Guti.
Yeah, and that's, I think, what the crew cracked down heavily on the space that the Fire could create. And there were also just moments where for the Fire it was super difficult to just like, even when they received the ball and they'd go quickly, all of a sudden they're stopped. The crew are rushing back. They're in position because they've adjusted tactically to what the Fire were doing. They didn't give them any space, and eventually it was just turnover after turnover. Like they just knew that the Fire were going to turn it over and just do the work for them, essentially.
Well, part of that I think is something that I think we have to give Berhalter credit for, and I did a recap where I had a few thoughts about the game, and you can read it on minutedred97.com. But to recap part of that, it's I don't think it was like Berhalter long run does want to use the same system that he's used from his time with the crew to the USMNT, building out of the back and trying to control games with possession. I wasn't sure if that was going to happen in this game because the crew wants 60% of the ball. I think the Fire with Berhalter wants 60% of the ball, and I think that's a change from previous years. And obviously, like Berhalter said it best, he said something's got to give, right? Because you can't have that happen. But the Fire remained committed to trying to build out of the back throughout the game. And there were some mistakes, but I think that that's still the right strategy because if you're able to pull, like, you know that Columbus are going to have a high line of confrontation. You know they're going to shove a bunch of bodies in the midfield. And the Fire on the other side of it, one of those bodies is going to be Sergio Orahel. So with an inexperienced midfield, you build out of the back, try to get the ball deep quickly. And I think that was the best chance of success, even if it didn't work out.
Yeah. There were a ton of people all over X and Instagram saying that Berhalterball sucks. And I thought that was crazy because one, I actually really enjoyed having that sense of tactical identity that we have not had in previous years. And obviously it wasn't a good system. It didn't work against the crew. But that comes from Tim. Like you mentioned this, they've been together for a month and a half, 2 months and a half. The reps are not there. They're going to get better. They started a 19-year-old midfielder who obviously struggled getting the ball from Chris Brady a couple times. The system's good. It didn't work.
And like Kuipers didn't really have any time with the system. Like Bamba got into preseason relatively late. Like it's not just how little time they've had with Berhalter, but also some of the guys coming in didn't have time in preseason.
For sure. It's all about meshing. It's all about the time.
The journey. Sorry, I'm so sorry. The ADHD moment. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Is
making my way downtown. Sorry,
walking fast.
Had to sing that song. It's a great one. But yeah, you're right. Like it's a process. We all know it's a process. The sleeping giant awakens. It's not fully awake yet. So that's all I got to say because I love that Greg Berhalter quote that we are 100% overusing. But it's so fun. DJ, I want to hear from you. What went right? What were you happy with?
Honestly, this is gonna sound weird, but I was happy with the defense aside from before the mistakes. Like the weird thing about this game was it looked good until the Toronto own goal, and that's when everything just went to crap. It was like once that went in the back of the net, you just had that sense of, oh great, this is going to happen again, isn't it?
Yeah, go ahead.
But honestly, the game was overall good. Once they finally kind of got those mistakes under control, the defense actually did pretty well. And even after all the mistakes and everything, the defense was pretty decent throughout the entire game. Other than the mistakes, obviously, but once they got it under control, it was good. Of course, the offense was amazing, but I mean, I will say too, speaking of the thing about people talking about how bad Berhalter is, someone on Twitter said something about, I knew this defensive rebuild wouldn't work, and I just feel the need to point out, there was one new guy in the defense all night. If this is a defensive rebuild, I don't think this is one that's going to work.
Some people are emotional, DJ. That's the way I'll put it. That's the way I put it. Alan, what's up?
Yeah, I want to agree with DJ based on what I saw because, yeah, the Crew, especially in the second half, when they were playing their ball, they were playing their system, it was scary to watch at times, especially when they would just slowly, methodically just play around each other and then all of a sudden explode into the final third. It was definitely scary to watch, but our defense did hold up at times during that. So there, even with those, moments of being shot in the foot, there are positives. There are positives always.
Well, and when you look at the goals that happened, they, a couple of them were defensive lapses, and I think that, the own goal was a freak incident. I think that positioning was part of it, but part of it was just the kinds of turnovers that I don't think happen regularly, and I think that are the sorts of things that are easier to fix than a lot of more fundamental problems.
Mm-hmm.
100%. I think people are going to look at that scoreline and think, the Fire collectively had like 3.5 ratings on the back line, when in reality, that's not the case. We watched the game. We know what we're talking about. I'd say all four were kind of freak goals. I mean, I think Andrew Gutman fits really well into that system. You can see how he's going to be successful. That partnership with Bamba is evident. In fact, not to glaze because I always glaze, but that pass to Bamba on the second goal, I believe it was incredible. So he's going to fit into that system, that overlap option with Bamba. Jack Elliott largely played pretty well in his debut. Like to mention some defensive lapses, but a lot of that was just kind of chaos. Carlos outside the own goal, like DJ mentioned, an okay debut. And Johnny Dean, a guy who is like just not perfect overall, played like a individual is not perfect, and is also not expected to start on this back line with Justin.
And he
Reynolds
did have some good
Barroso.
moments though. Like he did run pretty well. Like there were some mistakes that he had, and I think that that's one of the things that's going to keep him down. But we did see the explosive speed that we associated with him. We did see him completing some pretty good long passes, quickly. Some like a one timer that barely licks his foot before it's going off and across the field. So even then, I think that there's things to build on. I think that the challenge is going to be the group staying believing in the system and continuing to grow. Even as some of these pieces are going to get switched out. I was a little surprised that Sam Rogers didn't start this one. I wonder if we will see him start against DC, partly because of the Toronto own goal, and partly just because I think that may have been the plan, or it may be like a 1A, 1B thing in that position. But, I think we'll see.
I think part of it too is still the injury bugs going around. Sinkernagel, in all honesty, I think part of Sinkernagel's problem this game was he was still dealing with that injury from last weekend, which, I mean, is unfortunate, but also when your options are start Philip Zinkernagel or Omari Glasgow, you're probably going to go with Zinkernagel.
Well, and it was also Zinkernagel's first game that mattered against an MLS opponent, and I think some of that showed. I think that one of the things that showed was, he's played in leagues that have VAR, but he's also spent a lot of time in leagues that did not have VAR at the time, and I think that he's learning what VAR is and what it does, because like you could see there were a couple of times when he would complain about a call that he felt didn't go his way, like an offside or something like that. That's like, dude, you're not going to win this one this way. Like that's not the way that this league is going to work for you.
Speaking of Omari Glasgow, when he stepped on to the field, there was a moment where that energy came back. I mean, I get it. Fresh legs always helps, but Omari Glasgow, after watching him play with Fire 2 for a while, it's like, yes, especially just yes, that explosive energy of very similar thing of what Bamba did, just running down with the ball. Yes. I want to see it more. I want to see it develop more.
I'll say that's Amari's best trait is a runner. And I can confidently tell you that I almost shivered in my skin when I saw that Tom Barlow dummy to Amari that almost got in the back of the net if it wasn't a nice save by the defender. So it's good to see him, a player that obviously the fan base cares about a lot, and the club values because they gave him a first team contract, come in and get involved in the game. But that being said, and I said this on X, Tim mentioned it as well. You need more from Zinkernagel. So a guy you gave a 4-year contract with. He's a quality player. He's an MLS starting quality player. Borderline, maybe. Everyone might have different opinions on it in multiple different spots. That debut was poor. And I think it's okay to be critical of that. He had a gross yellow. To mention it, he was complaining. And there was one point where Jonathan Bamba on the left had a beautiful cross field pass to him in the sky, not the scare. And he did absolutely nothing with it. Similarly to the pass that Bamba made to Zinkernagel against San Jose, but it was on the ground. And I think when you are a starting right wing who has high expectations like that, you need to do more. So we'll do our formal predictions for next Saturday's game against DC in a bit, but I am feeling a Zinkernagel goal. He's going to light a fire underneath his butt cheeks, his pants, whatever you want to call it. So definitely need more from him.
Yeah, I think the other thing about that, though, is like, we talked about the injury a little bit. I also think that the role that he was being asked to play was not the role that Bamba was being asked to play on the left side, right? Like, I think that Zinkernagel was given some more midfield responsibilities and stuff like that. And I think that just makes the game a little bit more complicated for him, which just means that the level of performance you need is a little bit higher, because you notice when he makes mistakes in ways that you don't necessarily notice when, like, Bamba made a run and it wasn't timed exactly right and that kind of stuff, unless it happens to get called offside, which, it wasn't in that one. But yeah, I mean, he was just cleanly dispossessed of the ball on Columbus's fourth goal. And, I think that is just the kind of thing that he would want to do better with if he had it again. And I think that you're right. Like, he has to challenge himself to do that, not down the road, but like in the next game.
For sure. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually feel a little bad about my previous statements. You're right. There are a lot of times, Bamba and Guti were in that left corner kind of creating their own magic over there. And then Zink kind of shifted over into that 10 role to provide support. So maybe he wasn't an
And I think that he was kind of responsible on, I think it was Guti's second goal, where he makes a timed run in the box that kind of works as a screen and gets defenders, thinking about him a little bit as well, which is part of, along with what Bamba was doing, like what gave Guti the time and the space to be able to get that shot off.
For sure. Yeah, he definitely knows what he's doing. You could see how he's going to fit in the Greg system. We'll just see if that actually results in some goals and assists in future matches. And I realize, although we've kind of segued into both good and bad, I forgot to share my good. And because I'm an optimist, I'd love to share my good.
Please.
I mentioned this earlier, but I love tactical identity. I feel like that's something that we haven't seen. And yes, playing out of the back, but it was so refreshing to actually see some quick passing tiki-taka-like in the midfield. Although it wasn't perfect, it wasn't crisp, it's very nice to see. And we did a lot in the preseason, but we saw it against Columbus Crew, which is obviously a different animal than, a preseason San Jose. No disrespect. They won 4-0 in their home opener, and I think that's really great for them. It was really great to see. And although it didn't result in a win, I consider it to be a positive. So I like Berhalterball, and anyone who tries to slander it, I will pick a fight with you on X.
I know that like everyone listening to this cares a lot about the Fire, which is why they're here. But like, if you try to imagine being a neutral, I mean, it was fun to watch, right?
For sure.
Like, and like winning or losing, like, and even when the team was down, I think that you felt, because of how they'd been playing earlier on, like that could come back, because momentum is going to shift back and forth over the course of 90 minutes. And if it came back, and if they had responded and made it 3-3 after the Toronto own goal, I think it could have been anyone's game to win. And I don't think that that's a feeling that the Fire have had in situations, especially in places like Columbus over the past few years.
100%. Entertaining Fire, even if they're losing, is still enjoyable to watch. And that's kind of a step up for us. So
I got comments from like, I got DMs from people like, Joe Lowry like messaged me, I think around the time that Guti scored the second goal. And it was just like, oh my God, like this team is so fun to watch now. And
Yeah, right.
you know, it's crazy, right? Like I didn't get any of those messages at all in 2024, you know?
No, and that's because, to be put it bluntly, the team was boring as crap to watch.
Yeah.
It was not
and no one was, they were on no one's list of games to watch, right? Like it was, oh, is that really the only game in that time slot? All right, cool, I guess.
Oh yeah,
No.
I'll have to watch the Chicago Fire.
And the goals just felt so like Matt mentioned, like with the tactical identity. It felt like so many goals, especially last season, were just lucky. I mean, heck, our best goal last season was assisted by the wind. So, it just feels refreshing and entertaining when you see that. And those first 20 minutes, you know, even when it was sort of back and forth, it felt refreshing. It just felt so refreshing, honestly, just to see that kind of identity. You know, it wasn't working as well in the second half, like you mentioned with the tiki-taka. I think at one point I was getting a bit annoyed that it wasn't working out, but still, identity. I absolutely agree with you, Matt.
I asked Guti about it after the match, which alone is kind of remarkable because he's not really big into doing media stuff and managed to get his way out of it for pretty much all of 2024. And, you know, he said something that I think is kind of remarkable. And I just wanted to get the quote up because it's the kind of thing that I was like, you actually said all of that? Okay. But what he said was that I'm just getting the exact wording up. I think that previous times, he means previous seasons, we never had an identity. I think previous times we never had an identity as a team, as a club. I think this year Greg has really put stuff straight forward and we have that football identity. We're going to play and we're going to play good football. I think it's just trusting the process. I mean, so for him to say that, you know, as a guy that's now in his fourth head coach with the team, right? Because he made his debut under Rafa Wicki in 2021. Oh no, I guess he made a debut and I don't think he started, but he played a few minutes in 2020. So like going that far back, saying that the team never had an identity until now, I think is crazy.
Yeah. I believe the word is elegant. That's the word to describe what I saw on the pitch yesterday. Wasn't perfect, but it was definitely elegant and it was enjoyable to watch. And it's refreshing to hear that it's not only nice from the fan perspective, but also from the player in the locker room. They know and they understand that they have that identity now. And I think we should take a lot of stock in that. So I'm glad you managed to get that quote, Tim. That is an unbelievable quote.
Awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree. A lot of positive. We've kind of gone over a lot of the wrongs. So my challenge to you is, in 3 words, share your complete overall thoughts of Chicago Fire Columbus so we never have to talk about the 4 goals again. 3 words. And if you do 4 words, we're cutting it out of the video or the podcast. So we'll start with, I'll give Tim and DJ a minute to think. We'll start with Alan.
Trust the process, because
Classic.
so many. I firmly believe in giving the manager time. And I know there's people that don't like Greg, or there are people that don't like Greg Ball. Like my friend who's a Columbus Crew fan, we talked on when I was driving home, we talked and he said that he's specifically not a fan of Greg Ball and of Greg Berhalter. And he says, we'll see how this Chicago experiment goes. And if it's, whether it's Greg or whether it's someone else, trust the process. And especially if someone like Guti, like Tim said, someone who never really comes out. And this time he comes out after 4 managers, after 4 or 5 years of playing. And he says the team got an identity. Trust the process, especially if Guti is saying stuff like that. Trust. Rome wasn't built in a day. And like I said previously, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And I know...
Taking my way downtown.
I mean, legitimately, though, I think the challenge is that Fire fans have been told that several times and the process didn't bear out. Like that was actually in the Fire's media guide during Ezra Hendrickson's last year. And there was like a little stat box that showed that every Fire manager over the past like several had better results year 2 than they did year 1. And obviously, you know, Ezra only made it through a third of that season before getting replaced for Frank Klopas. And I think that the reason to do it this time is because you can see what the identity is and you can see what the goal is and how the goal is to play in a way that we really couldn't before, right? Like, I don't think that like the biggest thing about like the Ezra Hendrickson years were those games where the team was defending with like 11 guys and, Gaga would walk out with a clean sheet because the team had no interest in trying to do anything on the other side of the pitch. And it was just like literally last ditch defending for 90 minutes and it managed to work. And I think that we can see that there's a more coherent identity already after just 90 minutes of games that count.
Is that your 3 words, Tim? More coherent identity?
Yeah, that works.
Look at that. Took the words right out of your mouth. So we have trust the process, more coherent identity. I'm excited for DJ's. DJ, what's yours?
How do I put it properly? Vita et mors.
Say
that for Latin. All right.
Say that one more. Okay, was that English? That wasn't English, right?
That wasn't English.
No, that was Latin.
It's Latin for life and death. Basically.
Perfect. Yeah.
I'm going to put it this way. The Fire, you need to give them time. You need to give Greg time. One thing to add on to what Tim and Alan were saying, it's not just that the coaching staff has changed this time. Everything's changed. The entire system, the entire team. Like, I'm not sure how many people are still with the Fire that were with the Fire a year ago, like in the entire organization. But there's so much change going on that it's going to take time for everything to get together. Before, one of the things that I've always hated about when the Fire switch managers is there's no time for the manager to actually do anything. The longest tenured manager since Dave Srirachen has been Veljko Paunovic. And part of the problem is that's a good player's time to actually fit into a system. The system doesn't do anything. You have a guy that's here, he's gone in a year and a half or a little over a year, whatever it is. Give Greg some time. Even at the end of the day, my view on Greg is this. I'm not sure if he's going to be the best manager in Fire history, but I trust him to at least set it up so that if he does decide, okay, I need to step aside, someone else can step in and be like, okay, I can take these reins from here. I know what we're doing. And that's one reason why I'm actually kind of happy he's decided to bring on guys like Hector Jimenez on the assistant coach. Greg is not working with it as this year is the MLS Cup year. He's working knowing there's this year, we still have next window, we still have all these. Again, like I said earlier, the back line was made of 5 guys, 4 of whom were on the squad last year. 2 of whom probably will not be on the roster at the beginning of next year. 1 of whom may get traded at the end of next year. But, I mean, you got to give it time. And he's
brought in a lot of people around him. I think that's a smart point. Like it's a significantly bulked up front office with Greg Broughton, Darcy Norman, Michael Stevens, Eddie Rock is still there. So he's one of the holdovers and he's widely regarded as being very good at his job throughout the league. I'm missing,
there's a lot of people.
Thamajon,
yeah,
I think is the one that I'm. So yeah, I mean, it's a significantly bulked up front office. It's a significantly reworked assistant coaching squad around him. So he's not just rolling alone. And I think that he's also got everyone planning in the same direction. And, his predecessor made it through 5 seasons of doing absolutely nothing noteworthy other than burning through a giant pile of Joe Mansueto's cash. So I think that there's every reason to think that like he can expect a long leash if he needs one. But he may be, planning for another career move after this in a few years or whatever. But, I don't think that he was ever given the brief of like, if the team doesn't do X in a certain amount of time, then, like within this season, if you don't X in 2 seasons, we're not hoisting trophies, that he would be canned. Although I think that it's not at all out of the realm of possibility that the team could be talking about doing that within the next 2 years.
I think, I'll add on. I think if Greg if the Fire just can't even get out of last place at the end of next year, then Greg's out. But
Greg out? Oh my God, it's happening already.
Oh, wow.
God, we really
we're
if he's out of
we're saving
not
that.
even the first
DJ says Greg out.
the season.
It is really.
If they're in last place for the next 2 years, I could
Have
see
you been
that.
talking to a rye?
Yeah. That's actually funny you brought up a ride because that was part of my 3 words. First off, life or death, truly DJ life or death, apparently. My 3 words were, and I appreciate that insight, guys, was do not panic. which is particularly targeted to Twitter keyboard warriors after the game that have promptly been blocked. Sorry, Arai, I love you. Please don't burn down the website. But no,
I remember seeing the tweet from him being like, "Please unblock me, Matt."
Yeah, wait, really? That's funny.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. Not until the season's over, or he deletes Twitter or something. But yeah, do not panic. We've spent a lot of time talking about it, but it's 3 words, and it's also true. And I know some people will panic because that's who we are as a community, but you shouldn't. So there's a lot of feelings involved in this one, and that will continue.
I think that, the other thing is like, it feels like we've all seen this from the fire before, right? And I think that's the other point of frustration that we have to just touch on for a second. But like,
for sure.
It really feels different to me. I mean, I'm trying to be as objective as possible. I think I am with this. It just, there's never been someone with the resume and the power that Greg Berhalter's been given associated with the team since the last time that they were winning trophies.
AKA the last time they had a bald white guy running the club.
It's a sign.
Hey man, I'm all for job opportunities for bald white guys. I mean, like I'm all for giving lots of people opportunities, but as a bald white guy myself, I have some interest in the answer.
Hey, guess what? Matt's going to have a job soon.
Yay!
And with that, we're going to segue away from bald white guys to talking about the game on Saturday. Because although I'm proud of my future baldness, I'm not ready to talk about that or sit on that one any longer. Tim, you are beautiful. Don't forget you're beautiful, okay?
You're beautiful.
Yeah, he's giving me a little, yes, sir. Emotional game, a lot to talk about, a lot to feel about. But at the end of the day, we do inevitably have to move on to Saturday, the 2025 home opener for those of us who live in Chicagoland. Sorry, DJ. It's a big one. It's an important one. And in my head, most importantly, it's a winnable one. Fire versus DC United. Very quickly, I want to run down a little information about them, and then we'll get into some thoughts and score predictions before we wrap out the episode. A lot on the injury report for DC. None of the names incredibly important to their starting 11. Jared Stroud floats in and out. Connor Ante, Jackson Hopkins, Hakan Karamako, João Peglo, and Rita Zuhier also on the list among, I'm sure, maybe 1 or 2 others. Their last game yesterday, they drew against Toronto FC at home, which is probably not a great result for them, although both teams might not be playoff teams. We could talk about that in a second. Key players, we all know it. There's really one. Mr. Christian Benteke, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace, Liverpool legend. He won the Golden Boot last year with how many goals, DJ?
I want to say 23.
23 goals. We'll go with that until it inevitably gets fact-checked and we can confirm. And
no, that sounds right to me. I haven't fact-checked it, but I had 23 in my head.
Insane.
So
that's wild. That's wild. He did score against Toronto. Yeah, did score against Toronto. So he's already on the score sheet, so maybe that'll stop him from scoring against the Fire. There's a few key storylines to watch out if you're a Fire fan, whether you're going to Soldier Field yourself or you're watching on TV. Number one, and we've kind of talked about it, who starts in the back? Is it going to be Carlos? Is it going to be Sam Rogers? Is it going to be Johnny Dean? Will Barroso be hurt? Does Sergio Orahel start again? Does Greg keep up that consistency? And who else is going to come off that injury list? Because we talked about some key players. So let me ask you this. Who's starting next to Jack Elliott on Saturday? Is it going to be Sam or Carlos? Tim?
My bet would be Sam Rogers, but then again, I'm confused that he didn't start in the season opener, so could be wrong about it. I mean, I don't think that, as much as I criticize Toronto's performance, I don't think that one game is enough reason to remove him from the starting lineup, especially at this stage of the season. And I think that Greg has to manage Toronto's confidence as well. And it's like, look, mistakes can happen and that's okay, but you get another chance to go and work your way out from those mistakes. And I think that's a good message to send. I just was surprised that we didn't see Sam Rogers starting the first one, which is why I think it'll be him.
And I think the same applies, that same logic should apply to Sergio Orahel. Don't know what Romain Kouame's injury status is. Tim, maybe you're able to enlighten us a little on that.
My understanding is that it's unlikely that he will be ready for next week.
Not so, good, but
it is what it is, right? And so then Sergio Orahel will be the person who's, there's not a lot of other options there. More Pineda can play there. I don't think that's his preferred spot necessarily. Pineda was questionable before the game, so he's also not 100%. I think that you put Sergio Orhel back on the horse against the team that should be easier to play against, and to help just make sure that he feels confident enough to do the job that I really think that he's able to do.
For sure. I 100% agree. Had a bad performance, but give him the opportunity to go back, bounce back against a worse team in DC. Once again, no disrespect to DC. It's just true. We all know it. And give him the start at home, especially with Kwame out. You really have no excuse not to. Anyone else becoming available? Tim, do we have an update on any sort of injury report? Can you give us any
Nothing.
insiders?
So there's no official. Unfortunately, MLS doesn't do injury reports like every other sporting league. This is why I keep on praying. I'm like, I hate sports betting in some ways because of how much you just get bombarded with ads. But like, man, if MLS had an official sports betting partner, we would have like, this guy is expected back in like this many weeks. Yeah. And there would be updates like every week. We don't get that. We just get that they're out for a game. But my understanding is that it's likely that Barroso is not going to be available for a couple of weeks.
Okay. Johnny Dean's show it is. You either love him or you hate him. But
the other option there is, of course, like another fire homegrown Justin Reynolds. Yeah.
Yep.
Would not. I'll be honest. It would not shock me if we get a lineup this year that has Brady, Pineda, Orhel, Reynolds, Guti, and who's the other homegrown that's actually going to be able to play cups?
It'd be sweet. Sounds like an open cup roster to me, if I'm honest, but it sounds great. I love it. And I'm excited to see cups in action eventually as well. Let's transition, go over to the predictions. Alan, score. Give me who's going to score. Give me all of your goals. If you have multiple goals.
I'm predicting 3-1 Fire. Kuipers, Bamba, Guti, and then the one for DC is going to probably Benteke. That's what I'm going to put out. I'm thinking that the Fire are going to continue to build on what they had from Columbus. Keep figuring out their own tactics as well as how to adapt to when the opponents change their tactics. Have that sort of slider between plans and tactics. So I think they'll improve upon that. And against a DC side that is, well, it's DC. And especially in front of a home crowd, it'll definitely light something underneath their bums to say.
3-1 from Mr. Saxophone Man, not Trumpet Man. Tim.
Got it right.
I got it right.
Look at this. This is growth. Trust the process, everyone. Matt can learn the names of musical instruments.
I'm learning names. I'm learning instruments. I'm learning so much.
Actually, 3-1 was going to be my prediction. I mean, it would be great for Brady to get a clean sheet. But you just don't want to count Benteke out. And he's obviously the guy that you'd always pick to score if you got to pick a DC scorer. I think that. Hopefully Bamba gets a goal. Greg said that, it's kind of funny because I thought he had a phenomenal game, but after the match, Berhalter was like, well, we were expecting him to score and stuff too. He was like, guy had 2 assists and did a lot of work to make those goals happen.
League debut. That's crazy, Greg. That's crazy.
But hey, it's about setting a higher standard and we're definitely getting that there. Only 2 points? Come on.
So we got a 3-1. Is that what you said, Tim?
Yeah, I said 3-1, so I'm going to say that Bamba scores. I'm going to say that Zinkernagel gets a goal, and it could be a little bit surprising. I feel like there's going to be a surprising goal scorer. Maybe Kellen Acosta. He looked like he was thinking about it a little bit against the Crew, and I think that it would be good, and that would show that he's back.
Quick question: is the assist by the Wind or by a player?
Oh, I think the assist is going to be by a player this time.
Okay, got it. That feels
maybe a player
likely,
that can run like the Wind. If you want me to do like that alley-oop thing with that.
Ooh, I like that. Fancy.
That's
all right.
smart.
Yeah, 3-1, Alan and Tim. DJ, do you agree with these two?
I'm saying 4-0.
Wow.
I love it.
I'm saying Bamba, Guti, Kuipers, and Pineda all score.
A Pineda off the bench or in the starting lineup?
Either or. Honestly, I don't think we're going to see Orhel play a full 90 minutes for a few more games anyway. So I think for a while you're just going to see Pineda be the guy that comes on, or he starts and Orhel comes on later. I'm happy with that, and I think Pineda's going to score one today
and I think Sergio Orhel will be happy with that too, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you were honest about it, DJ, as opposed to lying to us, because I wouldn't appreciate that. I'm going kind of middle of the road between you two and going 3-0. I think Jack Elliott and Carlos or Rogers are gonna anchor that back line and not let Benteke get on the score sheet. And I think the Fire bounce back from a 2-goal loss with a 3-0 win. Goal scorers, I am going to go Bamba because John, nothing Bamba. Zinkernagel, like I said earlier in the show. And then my third one, and I thought Tim was going to say it, so I started panicking. Jack Elliott off a corner, MLS Cup style, like he did against LAFC a few years ago, whenever he was 23 or 22. But regardless, all of us are expecting a goal fest on the Fire side and not on the DC side. It feels like, and just let me know if I'm being dramatic. I know we're on week 2, but it feels like it should be a must win. It feels like it is a must win if you're a Fire fan or if you're a Fire community member to get the ball rolling on this season, because we do have high expectations. And I know Triple G agrees with those. Regardless,
that's a really great way of putting it, because
thank you. Thanks, Tim.
I said this on Reddit a few years ago, but it is extremely important that the Fire win their opening home game. Like, that is extremely important. And if the Fire can win it this year, then that's a very good sign.
And we're going to add something onto that?
Yeah, because usually that gives momentum and some thought of, okay, at least at home we can win. At least at home we can get, the points we need.
Yeah, so, I mean, the Fire have 2 home games in March. There's this one, then there was one on March 29th against CF Montreal. They have 3 away games in that span. Obviously, in MLS, like, winning at home was always a lot easier for a bunch of reasons. And then in April, they have a number of home games in April and May, but out of those 9 games, the only non-playoff opponent in that stretch in April and May is Nashville away. And the Fire have not looked great in Nashville away. Matt, you can attest to that.
Yep.
So
we drink a lot of Malort that day, Tim. That's all I'm saying.
So it's both a win in its own way and also a L in its own
awful L,
awful way. But that's what makes this game such a much win, right? Because they have a few games in March that are winnable, right? Like, they're against mostly non-playoff teams. Like FC Dallas has obviously strengthened their squad in some ways. I don't think they look great. Vancouver, who knows? It doesn't look like they're going to be as good as they were last year with a different coach, and they're still adjusting just like the Fire are. Toronto, I think, is, along with DC, a team that people think is going to compete for the wooden spoon, but it's their first home game. So you need to win, especially those 2 home games against DC and Montreal, because wins are going to be hard to come by in April and May. Points are going to be hard to come by. And so even if the team is doing everything right and progressing, those results are just going to be hard to get, and there may not be some. So you need to do everything you can to get points on the board, just in the standings, but also to give yourselves the confidence that, like, we believe in each other. We believe that this can get results, because if you don't get it now, there's a real chance of getting lost in that April-May stretch, which is like murderer's row of playing teams like Miami, Charlotte, who looked very good this year, Atlanta, who looked, incredibly strong this year, the Red Bulls, who made it to MLS Cup final last year. Like, it's not an easy stretch, and so you need to get points when you can.
Yeah, the next 3 weeks of Chicago Fire soccer are going to tell you a lot more about this club and where they're going to fit into the MLS table compared to what we witnessed yesterday at the time of recording against Columbus. It's just a fact. Huge opportunity. We'll see if the Fire are able to tackle it. And we're excited to get back to Soldier Field. Alan.
Yeah, I mean, I dislike the fact that we are having to use the term must win, but I'm very much on board with what Frankie Klopas said either last season or some time ago, when he said that Soldier Field needs to become our fortress. And the moment we become that, Soldier Field does become that fortress where we play a strong and entertaining game, it'll be great. And since we have a weird, away stinge where, we play at home once and then we got 3 on the bounce, you need to give the people at home, especially those people who maybe don't follow the Fire as closely as we do, you want to give them something to hope, because I'm always scrolling in social media and I'm seeing the promotions for the home opener. Also, I'm seeing them a lot more on billboards, like on the highway. I feel like I'm seeing it constantly. I'm constantly seeing Kellen Acosta or other players. The team this season are going with the term "fire up," like almost like superheroes. But yeah, give the people who maybe aren't, that much into the team as we are, give them hope as well, because that's what the city needs. The city
we need
needs
merchandise that says "Give the people a dub" in Latin.
Give the people a dub.
I could totally see. Yeah, DJ, cook that up. We could definitely throw it on the store when it inevitably ends up coming out. But Alan's right. Let's turn Soldier Field into a fortress, and that starts this Saturday. Expecting a good crowd. My guess is around 20 grand. If you want to hang out with members of the MIR crew, I can't speak for Alan or Tim, but I'll be in the South Lot partying with everyone down there. Come say hi. It's a great opportunity.
Come on, DJ. You've got a car and a heart. Make the drive up. We'll get you tickets. You've got a car and a heart, DJ. You can make the drive up.
Exactly, DJ. You're a diehard. You've made more of these pods than anyone else on this call, so you're definitely a diehard. But yeah, come hang out with us in the South Lot, or come say hi to us in the supporter section or wherever we're sitting, and having a good time. We'd love to see you. We'd love to interact with you.
It won't be as cold as it has been in the past few weeks. We're starting. We're getting. I think we're in the multitude of Chicago seasons. I think we're approaching the first fall spring. Yep. So it's not going to be it's still going to be a bit chilly, but it's not going to be as cold. Definitely not as cold as it was in Columbus yesterday.
Let's not get ready. We don't have to talk about third winter yet or second winter yet. Let's just focus on first fall and spring. Going to be a good day at Soldier Field. Before we close out, a couple announcements, because announcements are fun. Now that we are back into the season, we're going to be recording or trying to record every Sunday for release on Monday or Tuesday. So you guys get to hear the recap quickly and hear us preview the next game quicker. And that might change depending on midweek games or Open Cup games. This Thursday, 2/27, Hot Takes live on YouTube. If you like our content and you want to hear this content with a lot more swearing and slander, I guess is the way to put it, then come join us live on YouTube at menandred97.com. Before we close it out, gentlemen, where can we find you on socials, starting out with DJ?
You don't find me on socials. I find you on socials.
Oh, yeah. Classic DJ right there. Love it. Alan, where can we find you?
Poll with the goal 69 on Twitter. The Poll with the goal 127 on Instagram. Those are two best places to find me. Definitely on Twitter. Twitter is probably where I'm more active when it comes to fire stuff.
Chase Gasper, where can we find you?
Sing_electric on X and T-Hotsy on Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky increasingly more now. It's a nice place to hang out. And I'm getting way fewer comments from Nazis there. So that's always a goal of mine every week.
Oh dear.
Definitely a good goal. And you can find me at mshabes, MSHABES, on pretty much any platform that exists, because I'm a Gen Z who loves social media. Be sure to also follow Men in Red 97. Alex, Tim, and the rest of the team have some incredible written coverage going on. And they are working so hard to provide meaningful coverage for you. We have
MIR97 and MIR97 pods.
Exactly. Alan nailed it. Be sure to follow us, like us, retweet us, repost us, whatever it is. If you like our content, it means the world to me. We're excited to see you all this Saturday, and we're excited to get back into the swing of things this season. And all I got to say for the outro is, come on, you men in red. See ya, everyone.
Come on, you men in red.